Hi guys. So the first time I tried cocaine, I think I struggle to remember it. I think one time I actually got a free sample of it from the dark web, and presumably it was absolute rubbish because you wouldn't really give it away free, would you? Um, and I remember just not being. Hello, Luna. That's my food. Yep, you've had your breakfast. That is your bag of food, but you can't feed yourself. You're being very greedy. What are you looking for? Come here. Come here. Come here and say hello. I think I had it then. I don't know, but anyway, it was a very insignificant experience. I didn't really have it. The first time I properly had it, it was when I moved to Bristol, and this guy helped us move. No, he helped me actually. I went by myself. I was with my ex-girlfriend Tara, but I was doing the move, and this removal guy, this man with a van, he was quite a cool guy. And we were just chatting about drugs and stuff and MDMA and things like that, and he was telling me about coke, and I was saying I'd never really tried it, I don't really know anything about it, and sorry, there's a lot of faff going on at the start of this video, and I was telling him, I've never really tried it and stuff, and when we arrived at the place, we'd finished unpacking, he was like, here you go, here's a little bit, I've got some left over from my brother's wedding or something, and he put a couple of lines out on the counter, and we had some, and I don't remember if Tara was there with me or not, if she had some as well, but whatever, anyway, so tried some then, and then I was like, oh, it was really nice, can you give me your guy's number? And we started doing it then, and at that time we used to just we got a half gram that night basically, because it was pretty decent coke actually that we were getting then. I never I didn't start like a lot of people do with shit coke. Did I? No, I didn't. No, it was good. Sorry, I had to cut out a bit there because I was just like going a little bit Joe Biden, trying to piece my thoughts together and remember the order of these events. But it doesn't really matter anyway, it's completely insignificant. At that time, we used to be able to do half a gram. It was quite good coke. We'd get half a gram from this one guy that had like good stuff, and we would just have some drinks with it. It was really good at first. Sorry about that bizarre noise my nose just made. This video is a mess. It was really good at first. It was really fun, and just like, I don't know, we used to just like take it and listen to music and fucking walk around and shit and do whatever really, and it was good. And it wasn't too finished. I don't know how half a gram used to last us, between two of us, so a quarter of a gram each. And that was probably the first like 3 or 4 times we did it. It was good. And again, as I said, I don't remember the exact sort of sequence of events because I used to smoke a lot of weed back then and I used to drink a lot. But we started doing it more and more, and it became a thing that we could never have any money, because whenever we had money, we would get it. And it wasn't that often. We weren't using it on weekdays or anything, and it wasn't even like every weekend. But it's so expensive. It's like so fucking expensive unless you live in fucking Colombia or something. Otherwise it is monstrously expensive. In fact, I think in Australia it's like $300 a gram, and in England it averages about 100 quid a gram for good coke. For pure coke, 100 quid a gram you'll pay minimum for like pure, but it's never pure, so you can probably get it for like 80 and it'll be quite good. And I sometimes find slightly less pure coke, you get almost a bit more bang for your buck. Like, if you could have the choice, obviously, to have it unlimited, you'd probably prefer it to be pure because it's a bit healthier and shit. But like, sometimes when it's cut with like speed and shit, I do think like it has slightly more mileage. Anyway, we would mix it with alcohol, and it was very euphoric to do that. And we used to just drink shitloads, like disturbing amounts, because we'd get through like, we'd each have like a litre of some kind of spirit, and then we'd have like loads of other booze as well, and it was too much, and that used to kind of concern me. I used to think like, this is just a really bad amount to be drinking. I've never really been into like binge drinking. I was more like, a daily drinker, drinking a lot at home. So I feel this video is awful so far, by the way. Sorry, it's probably boring and not interesting. But yeah, the long and short of it, I guess, is it started to just become more and more like a thing we wanted to do, and every time it got more and more, the come downs would get worse, and we'd get to a point where like we'd just be like, let's not do that again. And then the next weekend we'd just do it again, or 2 weeks later we'd do it again. Usually it was every 2 weeks we'd do it, because it would take a few days to recover from. We'd get really ill afterwards. Like, I remember we'd always have a cold that would last weeks every time we did it. And some people say that's because it has this stuff called levamisole, which is a cow dewormer, which can fuck with your immune system, and it just makes you ill, basically. And that's where some of the really bad shit that happens to people on coke comes from, apparently, because levamisole has a very similar high to coke, apparently, but is very bad for you. So we would just get, like, plastered on it, get ill all the time, and I would find that the crash is, like, the worst thing in the world. Like, it is just so bad. I don't know why, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's just awful. You just feel like fucking shit, like terrible. It's pretty much one of the worst feelings I can think of from drugs. It's worse than like a bad MDMA come down. It's just filth. I don't know what it is. There were times, we were doing it more and more for like years throughout our time in Bristol, and I remember times we'd be in bed and we'd be looking at each other, just like basically unable to move, and be like, never again. Like, never again. We will just never do this again. And we just do it again. And it was always kind of crazy how, like, that kind of the kind of difference between how we'd feel at the end of it and then how we'd feel when we just, like, 2 weeks later when we wanted to do it again. And we started buying better and better coke, and it got to the point where we had to get more and more, and it's never enough with coke. This is the thing. It's never enough. You never feel satisfied after a certain point of using it. Like I said, in the early days it was fine. We'd do half a gram and we just fucking go to bed. I don't know what was going on then, but the more we did it, the more it was like, it just didn't matter how much you had. I personally, anyway, I always wanted the night to go on longer, and I would probably have gone on like 3 or 4 days had I had the option. And luckily Tara was like a lot more sensible than I was about coke. She often wanted to do it more. I didn't want to do it that often, but when we did do it, I was like, let's just buy more. Like, it can't end. Like, it's just, I can't bear it. And I always wanted to pick up more, and we'd spend so fucking much, like, getting extra half grams and extra grams, and it's horrible to think about. Like, we wasted thousands of pounds over over a short period of time, to be fair. It was like a couple of years. We didn't use it for a long time. But we used to waste so much fucking money. And it's just so expensive, and you never have, in my experience, you never have like a memorable, joyful experience on it. It feels good, but so does like having a wank, taking a shit. Like, a lot of things feel good, but you wouldn't cherish them as memories. They're not happy experiences. It's just kind of pleasure, and it's like, it's a really kind of self-aggrandizing substance. Like, you just want to talk shit on it, and you want everybody to listen to you, and you don't want to really listen to anybody else. We used to actually get into arguments. We used to have actual, like, also it's a bit psychotic because we would just do it at home, the two of us. We never wanted to go out. We used to try sometimes while we were on it and just have the weirdest time ever and be really weird and unhinged. That reminds me of something, actually, I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, we used to have like fights over like who would listen to who, and we get into actual arguments, be like, it's my turn to speak now, like, let me finish my story and stuff, and she'd be like, I've been listening to you for ages. I'd be like, what are you talking about? I've been listening to you all night. It's time for me to speak. It's time for me to be listened to. I've got stuff to say. I want to talk. It was just insane. It was absolutely insane and ridiculous. And then you just want more and more and more, and you're just so excited to sniff it, and then you have it, and it like doesn't the addictiveness of it, or the moorishness of it, or the amount that you want it, is like a lot more than the sum of its parts is the wrong phrase, but it's deceptively moorish or something. It's like, it's not even that good, but your brain thinks it's amazing. Your brain thinks it's like the most amazing thing ever, and that you have to have it, and it's just going to make you feel so good, and it's so brilliant, and you have it, and it certainly like ticks that box. But you're not there in euphoria being like, oh, this is amazing. You kind of just like buzzing, but it's a bit like, it passes you by, and it's kind of... I would honestly recommend, if you've never tried it, I would recommend never trying it. I really just think don't bother trying it, because it draws you in. I know it's not addictive in the way like opiates and stuff are, but it is fucking addictive in like a social and mental and kind of and in a kind of immediate sense. Like on the night, it's more addictive than anything. Fucking hell, like it is hard to let it go, to be honest. Like, and you see people, you know, looking around for it on the floor, getting weird with each other about like, can I have some of yours? I gave you some earlier, and people are like, oh, I haven't got enough left, and it's all like, you know, fucking weird. I would strongly advise anybody who's never tried it, just don't bother. Like, why bother trying it? You know, it's not an enriching experience. I've never really heard anybody talk about enriching or positive experiences on it. You know, a lot of drugs have downsides, but you have a lot of like memories and amazing things, and you're really grateful to have taken them. I've never heard anybody be like, I'm so grateful to have discovered cocaine. Like, it's shit, really, basically, is the long and short of it. It's shit, and it turns you into a dickhead, and it's so expensive. All that there is that makes it popular is just this like fucking enticing like siren call of it that's like, you just want it. And even these days, sometimes I still get, and not really for a while to be fair, but I still like really want it. But luckily for us, when we moved here, we got a bit freaked out by the pandemic at first, for a short period, you know, before whatever. Anyway, and we sort of thought it's probably not a good idea to do coke because it fucks with your immune system so much, possibly because of the levamisole, and it'd be really bad to have a weakened immune system at this time. And if we do coke, you know, maybe we'll whatever. So it stopped us doing it. It's cheaper here and stuff, but we've never or I've never done it here anyway since moving here, and it's been years, you know, and I don't think we did it for a while before then. So it's been years since I've even done it. There are times when, the thought of it is really appealing. I don't know why. I think it's the mix of that and alcohol. And I think the price of it makes people want it more, to be honest. I think if it was cheap, you would kind of max out on it more easily. It wouldn't always be this thing where you just, you know, like, you just want a bit more and you can't really have it, and you can't, you know, you would just do yourself in basically pretty quickly and be like, I'm fed up of this. I don't know. It's I think the price is a part of it, and it has a vibe, it has an association, and you feel kind of like, I wouldn't say you feel cool doing it. You feel like you feel something. I don't know. It makes you feel something about yourself, because of the associations it has, and because it's like, you know, it's like the hardest drug you can take without being looked at as kind of junkie scum. It's like the hardest party drug you can socially acceptably take. It's the most like fucking like naughty drug, you know, that you can like take and not be looked at as a fucking bum, basically. And I think that is part of it as well. It's like, ooh, I'm doing coke, and like, obviously most people are not childish enough to be thinking about that the whole time while they do it, but it adds to the image of the drug. You know, it's like marketing in a sense. It's like kind of unintended, you know, sort of marketing that the drug kind of does for itself. So yeah, I think it's bad, really. I do think it's bad. We had one time we went out on it. We decided to we were like, what places are open still? And it was like 3 a.m. and barely anywhere was even open. And we found this one place. We wanted to play snooker, and we found a place that had a snooker table. And there was like a night going on there. There was all these like roadmen there and shit. And it was a weird night, man. It was it was so weird. A lot of weird shit happened that I can't even be bothered to get into, but it was embarrassing for me. But also there was this DJ DJing there, and he was a bit like, I don't know, nothing really. He was DJing, and we started asking him to play Gets. We were really into Gets, the grime MC at the time. If you haven't heard Gets, you should listen to like Esco Spirit or like Fine Wine, or the best Gets video is Gets Behind the Bars. There's this series, they only did one video of it. They didn't do any follow-up episodes with other MCs, but Gets has a set on there that's fucking incredible. It's a good introduction to Gets. Powerful MC. Like, his delivery is pretty much second to none. We kept asking him to play Gets, and he was like, no. And we didn't really understand like tempos and like vibes, and you know, like people are dancing and you can't really put on like grime and stuff. And we were like, just play Gets, and we kept going over to him, and he was like, no, what is it? And I was like, it's really good, you'll like it, it's really good. And he kept being like, oh, I don't know. And then we were just pressuring him all night, and then he didn't even have any Gets. He had a Stormzy song, it's called Bad Boys, and it's got Gets and J Hus. The only song he had on his like fucking rotation was this Stormzy track featuring Gets. And he put it on, and it was immediate. The second he put it on, we were both like, oh yeah, that was a bad idea. That's completely different to all the other music he's been playing all night, and you can't dance to this. And he had to speed it up to like tempo match it. So he put on this song at like 1.5 speed. If you hear the song, you'll imagine like if this happened at like I don't know if he did have to speed it up, but he did anyway. He sped it up, and or it was like a remix or something. It was really fast and bizarre, and everybody left the dance floor like immediately. It was really weird. And then we left. We just left the place. We were like, oh god, we've fucking ruined his set, let's go. And we didn't even stick around to hear it, and he had to fucking, you know, I'm sure it wasn't a big deal, he would have just been able to put something else on, but it was just pretty funny, like, anyway, yeah. And yeah, it just makes you sometimes just crazy egotistical. Like one time I got into a thing with someone on the night, like they were a bit of a dick about something, and it was fair enough. Like this person was a dick. What they did was not good, but I just left this like, I remember leaving this mad voicemail, and like it was just unhinged. It was like unhinged. And then later that night when I was crashing, I was getting like really upset about it, and I was like almost crying and shit, and I was so like uncomfortable with everything. And I used to find a lot on it, I would get like, I would just take it and I just wanted to like text everyone, and like you just become a bit, I don't know, it's one of those drugs where you lose yourself a little bit, I find, and you become a bit like a different person, and it's often not a very likable person. And I've never really enjoyed anybody's company on it. I never really like people on it. It doesn't bring out the best in people. I think it brings out the worst in people in a lot of ways. And it's very bad for you. It's very unhealthy. It's only really fun to mix it with alcohol. And if you don't mix it with alcohol, you might as well just take other stimulants that are healthier. They last longer. They're more effective, more productive. You're more productive on them. I don't see any real utility for cocaine. I think it's like trash, really. And I know as well, if I ever started like drinking again, the first thing I'd want to do is do cocaine. Like I would just want to buy it, and it's one of the reasons I don't drink. Because in fact that was why I stopped drinking, because I would go out and drink, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore anyway. I'd drink and I would just feel like depressed afterwards, and it didn't really help me much with my social anxiety, and that was part of why I would do it. I'd go to like these like meet-up events and shit, and I'd just be like, oh fuck it, and you know, like have a drink just to feel better, and it never really worked, and I used to feel like shit afterwards. I don't know why. I don't know why that started to happen over time. I guess it's the kindling effect. But then one of the last times I got drunk, maybe the last time, it was like a Thursday night, and I was ringing my ex up like very shortly after we broke up, and I was like, I went to watch Arsenal at this sports bar, and I got really drunk. Well, I didn't even get that drunk. I had like 3 pints or something, and I was like ringing her up, and I was like, let's get some coke, let's do it. And she was like, are you all right? And I was like, you know, it sounds really weird, and it's a Thursday and I'm working tomorrow. And I was like, fuck that, like, let's get some coke, come on. And then I think again I started getting really emotional, and like I was like really fucking anyway, sorry, not relevant. But I was just after that I was like, nah, I can't be drinking basically. And if I'd continued drinking from then until now, this past year, I'm sure I would have done coke a number of times, much to the detriment of my already pitiful bank account, and it would have been very bad. So I'm really glad, and I'm glad that I've kind of lost interest in it, and yeah, I don't think people should take it. I'm trying to remember if there's any other little stories about it. I'll have to edit out this gap. Let me have a think. Oh yeah. One time, we had the the floor coke incident. There were two of these floor incidents. There was one shortly before that, a couple of years earlier. There was the floor cheese incident where I'd gotten really drunk and I found all these packets of cheese on the floor in Turnpike Lane at like 4 a.m. And I insisted on taking all this cheese and bringing it home, and I was like eating all this cheese that I found on the floor. It was in packets, it hadn't been touching the floor, but still. Someone had discarded this cheese for a reason, you know? And anyway, this other time I was in this place called Turtle Bay in Bristol. It's like cocktail bar restaurant thing where it's like quite like a little bit like this shirt, you know? It's that kind of vibe. It's cool actually. I liked it. I don't like going out, but I quite like that place. It's quite fun. And I went to the toilet there and I just found this bag, this mystery bag of of drugs. And we think it was coke. We had it and it felt like coke. And I felt a bit at that point, I was like, what if this is spiked? What if some sicko's left this here or what? And we still just had it. And there's things like that I always felt incredibly guilty about afterwards. And then it's still to this day made me feel a bit ashamed of myself for behaving like such a fucking degenerate. Because it's not, especially when there's other people involved, you know, it's just gross and not nice and stupid. Anyway, we had that and it was quite good, and I think we then picked up more coke thanks to that fucking stupid baggie that someone left there. I remembered I forgot to mention this in the Amphetamines video. I appreciate this video is all over the place, by the way. Sorry, it's not the most coherent. In the Amphetamines video, I forgot to mention the first time I almost tried it. I got a sample of it. I got a sample of speed, free sample from the dark web, but the guy's username was Richard Kuklinski, and he had no feedback, and he was giving out free samples. And I don't know if you guys know anything about Richard the Iceman Kuklinski. He was not a very nice man. He killed a lot of people, and he did so in quite sick kind of covert ways sometimes. Like, he claims that if somebody bothered him or stepped on his shoes or something, he would often go and just put poison in their drink and then just leave, and they would presumably just die. And this was like in the 70s where it was a lot easier to murder people. Some people say he's a liar. I think he is confirmed to be a liar to some extent, but he did definitely kill a lot of people. Yeah, so I thought maybe this guy's inspired by the real Richard Kuklinski, you know, and he wants to fucking poison people, and he's got no feedback, he's giving out free samples, you know. So I ended up pouring it down the sink, which was, maybe that was a good move, you know. I never heard anything about this in the news, though, so probably it would have been fine. Yeah. And as for coke, yeah. Oh, well... one of them I can't really get into specifically, but you could probably piece it together. We felt like maybe we had accidentally killed someone we knew, and we had this thought occurred to us while we were crashing, and that is probably the most afraid I've ever been in my entire life. And I must admit, it was a purely selfish fear. It was, I'm going to go to jail for the rest of my life. And when you're crashing and your heart is already pounding, I remember it vividly. It was so frightening, and just, it was like it was one of those feelings, I describe it a lot when these things happen, where you just feel like, you literally feel the blood drain from your face. It's just like, and everything changed. I've had probably a handful of experiences like that in my life, where you hear something, or something occurs to you, or you realise something, you learn you know, get some horrible information, and you just feel it. Everything changes in like the space of about 2 seconds, and that was a nasty experience. That was horrible, not particularly entertaining or funny. One time we tried putting it up our arses. I was reading this girl online who was saying she used to like put it on a dildo and put that up her arse, and it was like really good, and we were running low, and I thought like this would be a really good way to make the most out of our coke, you know, because boofing some drugs is actually like really good. And so we thought, yeah, great. So we tried, but I don't know how she did it, because if you can imagine she must have had a loose arsehole, like really loose. Imagine you put a little pile of powder on top of the end of a dildo, and you try and put that up your arse, and the powder stays on. That's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. She must have had a fucking big anus, like, because it was impossible. It just all goes, gets like smushed around the rim of your arse. I think what you're meant to do is mix it with liquid and squirt it up there with a syringe, or possibly like a water pistol if you haven't got a syringe to hand. But yeah, that didn't work. Oh, this was not my personal story. This was a girl I used to live next door to. These two girls, and one of them was like a bit more like uptight and like probably like high functioning and shit, and a bit more like, grown up, I guess. And the other one was like, the opposite. And the one girl, the first girl, she never did coke or anything. She used to have like a bit of a drink and whatever, and they were friends, but she wasn't into drugs. And this other girl had all these mates who were into like coke and shit like that. And she was hanging out with them while they were doing it, and she got really annoyed with them, and because they were just annoying her. Like, they weren't doing anything really. They didn't do something terrible. They just annoyed her because they wouldn't shut up, and they were being like irritating cokeheads. And she picked up their plate where they had all of their coke, which, by the way, is insane to put all of it out on a plate. You keep it in the fucking bag. People are so dumb. She picked up their plate with all of it on, and she chucked it down the sink, and it was like 250 quid's worth. And she just fucking, like, I can't imagine how annoyed if someone did that. Like, I can't even imagine how annoyed I would have been. And they were insisting that she owed them the money, and she didn't pay them, and she was like, no, fuck you. And like, what are you going to do? Call the police? I never leave anything out like that, because it's so easy for that to happen, for it to get knocked over or whatever. One time, years ago when I was younger, I was back when weed had a much more value than it does when you're an adult and you can afford it a bit more easily. It was like a big deal to have a big amount of weed. And these guys we were chilling with, they had like a bunch of pollen hash, and they had a metal grinder. So normally you have to pick it apart, but with a metal grinder you can actually grind it into a fine powder. And he just thought it would be really great to grind up. He had this whole he had a free house and shit. His parents were away, and he had a whole like quarter or half or something ounce of this hash. And he thought it'd be amusing to grind up the whole thing and have this big tray full of powder. And he did it, and he had it in his tin on the edge of the sofa, and he'd finished it, and he was like going on like, oh, look at this, I've got all this fucking... And he just like, within 10 minutes, he had knocked it over, all over the carpet, powder, like powdered pollen just everywhere. And he was able to scoop up probably half of it, and it was still full of like carpet fluff and shit. So since seeing that, I think I just was like, never ever do that. Well, anyway, yeah, I can't really think of anything else. I'm sure there are some other stories. Some of them are just a bit depressing, really, hence why I don't really love coke. I don't think it's very good. Curious to hear yours. If you have any, I know, by the way, some people get heavily addicted to it. You need a lot of money for that, and that's the problem. I think is a lot of people who are coke dealers, they just do it because they're cokeheads. That's the sense I've gotten from all of them. It's the only drug I've seen where like the people who sell it seem to be the users of it, and they sell it just so that they can be coked up all the time, and they don't really make any money because they just put it all up their noses. I've seen that in quite a lot of people, and it's depressing. To turn your addiction into a serious crime that can get you a long sentence in prison is crazy. Yeah. So, and I've known of people, mutual friends and stuff, who like, they were just doing it all day. They have like office jobs, and they're just doing it all the time, and they were doing it like on weeknights. And a lot of people in the corporate world obviously get like really addicted to it, and I think the world would be a better place if it didn't exist, in all honesty. But yeah, let me know if you have any experiences or whatever to share in the comments. Thanks for listening if you got this far. I know this video is a bit crap. Sorry. Latest, guys.